Good morning, class. This is Brother Faddis. I've thought a lot of if I was a student, when I was a student as an undergraduate, what were some of the things I most wish I had to, as an instructor or in a class to help me be prepared to be in the place I am right now. Right now, I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist for about 20 years, and I've done 20 years of running and owning treatment centers for young adults and adolescents who are in the early stages of recovery. And I've also done private practice, mostly in couples therapy for the last 13 years as well. And looking the last couple of years to have made a lifestyle change, semi-retired from the treatment center world and now doing private practice. And in that work, I realized that there has been a lot of lessons, and some are developmental. I mean, you have to be at that developmental place of your career to learn them. But there's also a lot of things that I think I learned I could have learned and did learn as an undergraduate. And the course itself is designed to, they call it bilingual, to talk about both the gospel principles and the secular principles of applying um, marriage skills. A cognitive behavioral couples therapist would call the schema, schemas of how we see couple interactions, see ourselves within the couple interaction. And one of the things that I would like to do is I look at the reasons why most of you are taking the class. A lot of you are hoping to go to grad school and become a therapist. A lot of you are looking to become a family life educator. Something I did early in my career as an undergraduate, I was at one point a CFLE. And some of you will probably find yourself working in those educating type of settings. And some of you are taking the class because it's something you like to apply in your own relationships. But I'm trying to grade towards the requirements of the class. The curriculum itself, I think, is trying to present a bilingual approach to these marriage principles. But I would like to push you, and some of this may be challenging because, the curriculum itself is designed to be, I think, a very beginner or it's not necessarily beginner, but a 300 level class. But I would like to, and I'll grade towards it being a 300 level class. I say that because I don't want anyone to get anxious or worried. But I also, one of my favorite professors, when I started at Rick's, transferred to BYU Provo, and I had a professor who mostly taught in the graduate programs in marriage family therapy, Dr. Jeff Larson. And I loved taking classes from him as an undergraduate because he taught to us as we were graduate level students. And to some extent, I'd like to present some of the ideas that I would like to see graduate level students who are particularly in marriage and family therapy field being able to know and utilize. And there is, especially as we look at these case studies, to look at some of these case studies from those perspectives. And there's a couple of things I really encourage you just to be aware of. Being aware of and remaining curious is such an important part of being, whether you're an educator sitting with people who are desperately looking for answers, and you're trying to help them find them from a psychoed approach. And I hope that they all talk to you about Dr. Doherty's spectrum of family life education versus therapy. I don't know if that's part of the curriculum or not. But particularly as you're sitting in a room as a therapist, and not just like an individual therapist, but as a relationship therapist, whether it's couples or marriage therapy, the dynamics are very different than doing individual therapy. But for us to be effective, we need to really remain curious and aware of our own experience to what's being talked about and being said. Our own prejudices, our own belief systems, the things that we align with and the things that we don't. I think one of the most important things is learning to be solid yourself in your own belief system and schema, and even having a secure relationship with your own self-doubt, with your own fear of having imposter syndrome, and then be able to sit with that comfortably and help explore those same things with the people who are in front of you, especially when they have become defensive and hurt, and the pain is so strong that the pain is probably driving the conversation for the people in front of you more than the uh, the the issues that they're bringing up. One of the most important things, and I also am working my certifications in emotionally focused or an EFT therapist based in attachment theory. Dr. Sue Johnson is the grandmother of this approach. And we talk about how part of our job is to be a process consultant. We're not there to give advice. We're there to help them see the process and change it with them, and change it back to a place where they not only trust each other, but they can allow themselves to love again. So being aware of what our prejudices are and how our reactions are, and being comfortable with our own reactions, whether they're negative, angry, frustrated, and where they're rooted in, so that we can actually be more effective with our clients. So I want to use this case example, this case study, to try to talk about that. And I know these things I'm going to share. The assignments you guys read, the stuff they had them, this for the most part, the things they had you read, um, being with like the proclamation application assignment, the other the readings from the proclamation. So I'm pulling it up here. You guys were reading chapter 4, which actually I do want to get to this. This does have a little bit of the secular stuff that very most of this assignment, the readings were not very secular. And so as far as their bilingual grading, most of what they had you read was very much the principles of the application of the proclamation of the family, um, chapter 4 from Dr. Carroll's book, and then I know other Christofferson was one of the additional readings at the end, and there was another reading, Why Marriage, Why Family by Elder. That's Christofferson. That was not. Well, that was the optional one. The other one was, anyways. They didn't have a lot of the bilingual information in there, but I wanted to start thinking about the way that we're approaching this, not just the information. This is what I mean by process consultant, not just the principles and then the applications, the how, or excuse me, the why, and then the how. Um, and a lot of your guys' assignment, again, I want, I'll grade on like what the assignment was, but a lot of your assignments, a lot of the principles really are coming from the proclamation as I read through these, and from the talks. But some of the bilingual stuff, especially what Dr. Carroll says here in chapter 4, some of the things that he most talks about is Dr. Scott Stanley talks about different types of commitment. Mostly, Gottman talks about it too in some of his other books. Gottman calls it deciding versus sliding. Here in this book, he talks about it, Dr. Stanley talks about it as cleaving versus, or just devotion versus constraint. And I really like a lot of the research that Dr. Stanley and Howard Markham do around those two different types of commitment, because in the process of this, there's there's a potential, I guess, for a lot of constraint of saying this is the thing as I thought that we came into this marriage having agreed upon, and I want to constrain you to live up to those agreements that I thought we had made. Um, One of the other things I wanted to say before we get into the bilingual part of this is recognizing our own prejudices. Like if I could, if I was allowed to do this, I would have recorded this video as I often am when I'm not teaching at BYU, which is with a full beard. And I have my red shirt on and not my white shirt on. I don't have my tie on. And I just take stock of, not that those things are right or wrong, but to take stock of the expectations we have. And do I have a reaction to any of those things? If I came into this video with my full beard on, would everyone be like, "Why does Brother Faddis have a beard? That's not my expectation that you would have that beard on." And how would I respond differently to this video or the information in this class if I would had a full-on beard? And I can see in this case study that all of us have probably been raised in the proclamation principles that having children and multiplying and replenishing the earth is a commandment that is still in force. And that is accurate and it is true. But our alignment with that principle with the wife, does it get in the way of us seeing the process that's going on for this couple? It is probably on the surface. One of the things you really want to be careful of is don't get so wrapped up in the content. Really watch for the process. And as they talk about that they're fighting every single day and how she feels like he is controlling about who can come to the house, what type of money she's spending. And it's been that way for 5 years. They still have a lot of protective factors because they talk about the love they have for each other despite their differences, but they still fight. Their attachment is not 100% secure. And so they are arguing and fighting about all of the small things. And so when it comes to having children, maybe that he has changed his mind, but it also could be that in the context of their current attachment to each other, he's afraid of having children. He's afraid of having the conversation with her about children. And so it's easy to align with her around the principles of wanting to have children instead of just getting into the process of why has things shifted for him, and why has her approach, and also I'm curious about why she wants to have children. Is her thoughts are about gospel principles and her sense of self and her sense of purpose. She also hoping that having a children will change the dynamics that they have together currently as a couple. Will the fighting get less? Will the fighting get more? And I would like to see how much of the constraint versus understanding, as far as a principle from the curriculum, is being used in their day-to-day fighting, and whether it is about children or it's just about any of the topics that they fight about. And are they listening to each other? Are they listening to fix, or are they listening to understand? And does she really understand where he is coming from? And if she was to stop and listen to understand him, what might she hear? If he was to stop and listen to understand her, what might she hear? And this is where our prejudices and our beliefs and our hopes really can also become a stumbling block as much as they are a benefit or a motivation. And that Dr. Hayes, who's one of the creators of the acceptance commitment therapy style, or ACT, says that the things that will cause us the most pain are the things that we cannot accept. And so if I cannot accept that my partner is not aligned with me, they're not attuned in the same values, principles, or even reality that I'm in, am I going to fight to force them to constrain them to be in my reality? Or am I going to be able to just try to sit with understanding their reality and not feel threatened or afraid, and therefore try to control? Because when we try to control a relationship, it usually comes out in 5 ways. We either are going to have to be right, we are going to have unbridled self-expression, just bleh. We are going to stonewall or withdraw I'm going to stop talking. I think I've got two more. The need to be right. So retaliation. You know, when we're up against the things that we cannot accept and it's causing us pain, instead of accepting it, which is one of the ways that we relieve ourselves of it, we try to force what we want. And then the way I see, my reality is the only one that matters. And I'm going to try to make you or constrain you to have my reality instead of being able to try to understand yours. So I know that this is probably more than the assignment was necessarily looking for. I really want to help you start to practice having that schema of being able to look for the processes and use the principles and applications, both spiritual and secular. You know, a lot of you mentioned the spiritual ones, like being able to have compassion, having faith. You know, in the 12-step program in the AA, we talk about let go and let God. You know, do I really have the faith instead of trying to make something happen, of trusting in God that He, you know, has a plan and a process and an influence, and just trusting that, you know, trusting in other people's agency, and that, you know, we can use godly influence for that agency, but not constraint influence in their agency. And do I truly accept that, whether it's my spouse or my children? Welcome to the class. I'm so excited to have everyone here and start having these conversations and discussions. I hope they're both challenging, and I hope that as you get challenged or feel challenged, that you just remain curious about it and explore it, and not try to avoid the sense of the challenge. That's where a lot of our growth will come from. Have a great semester with us all. Thanks. Bye.